Watch what the octopus does in a 10-second gap. The body is still, but the mind is not. One tentacle reaches for the phone, another for noise, another for the tiny relief of checking something, anything. That is the real problem. Not dramatic boredom, but microscopic emptiness the modern mind no longer knows how to hold. The moment nothing presses in from outside, the inner static gets louder. So the octopus does not rest, it grabs. Not because the screen matters, but because unfilled seconds now feel like open water with no ground underneath. When a brain lives in constant reaction, even a red light can feel like withdrawal. And that is where the trap begins. The octopus is not weak, the tank is rigged. Modern life is built like a stimulation current that never stops moving, so every tentacle gets trained to chase whatever flashes first. The problem is bigger than poor self-control. The problem is an environment engineered to keep attention in a permanent state of almost grabbing. One ping, one clip, one headline, one tiny emotional jolt after another. Over time, the octopus stops choosing depth and starts living by reflex. Anything rich but slow begins to feel strangely tasteless. A book asks for patience. A workout asks for effort. A real conversation asks for presence. But the digital current asks for nothing except another tap, and it pays instantly. That is why ordinary life starts feeling faded. Not because ordinary life lost value, but because the nervous system got overfed on intensity. When every corner of the day is salted with novelty, calm stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling empty. And once that happens, the octopus is no longer swimming through life. It is being pulled by the loudest current in the tank. Boredom looks like a dead zone only if the octopus has been trained to worship movement. In reality, boredom is not a malfunction. It is the moment the water finally stops shaking long enough for the octopus to feel which tentacles are acting on purpose and which ones are just twitching at every signal. Stimulation keeps the mind occupied, but boredom exposes the wiring underneath. It reveals where attention has been leased out, where impulse has replaced choice, where noise has been mistaken for life. That is why boredom feels so awkward. Not because it is empty, but because it removes the camouflage. And the moment camouflage drops, the real system comes into view. Silence feels brutal to the octopus for a reason. The moment the water stops flashing with messages, updates, and borrowed urgency, another system wakes up underneath the surface. The mind is no longer busy grabbing. It starts drifting, tracing old fears, unfinished thoughts, strange patterns, quiet disappointments. This is why stillness can feel more intense than noise. Noise occupies the tentacles. Silence exposes what they were trying not to touch. Suddenly the questions arrive from below. Why is the schedule packed but the life inside it feels thin? Why does every day look full yet leave no real memory behind? Why does the hand keep reaching outward the second the room goes still? That is what people misunderstand about boredom. It is not painful because nothing is happening. It is painful because something honest is finally happening. When input disappears, the octopus can hear its own internal currents again, and those currents do not flatter. They reveal where attention has been scattered, where emotion has been dodged, where busyness has been used like camouflage. Boredom does not create the truth. It removes the wallpaper. The dangerous part is not that the octopus wastes time. It is that every escape from boredom trains the mind to abandon itself a little faster. First, a quiet moment appears. Then, a tentacle reaches for stimulation before any real thought can form. That small interruption looks harmless, but it has a cost. The octopus never stays still long enough to hear what is wrong, what is missing, what no longer feels alive. So reflection gets postponed. Then clarity thins out. And when clarity thins out, meaning does not vanish in one dramatic collapse. It leaks. Days stay busy, feeds stay full, notifications keep bubbling, yet something inside starts feeling under-oxygenated. The octopus is moving constantly, but not arriving anywhere. That hollow feeling is not laziness. It is the emotional residue of a life lived in permanent avoidance. And the cruel twist is this: the emptier the inner world feels, the more tempting cheap stimulation becomes. So the mind grabs again, not for joy, but for anesthesia. That is the hollow loop. Distraction first, disconnection after, then a life that feels strangely far away even while it is happening. Here is how warped the modern octopus mind can become. Give it a room, 15 quiet minutes, and nothing to grab, and some tentacles would rather hit the pain button than drift in open water with their own thoughts. That is not because pain is attractive. It is because unoccupied awareness has started to feel more threatening than discomfort. When a mind gets trained on constant input, silence stops feeling neutral. It begins to feel like pressure, like exposure, like being left alone with signals it has been muting for too long. So the experiment is not really about shock. It is about withdrawal. It reveals a mind so overstimulated that even self-inflicted discomfort can feel easier than unfiltered contact with itself. That should worry us, because it means distraction is no longer entertainment. It is becoming emotional escape gear. Not all boredom is a doorway. Some of it is a distress flare. A healthy stretch of emptiness can help the octopus reset, notice its own currents, and recover choice. But when the water stays flat for too long, when nothing feels engaging for weeks, when curiosity goes dim, when even meaningful work feels strangely unreachable, that is no longer the same signal. That kind of boredom is not asking for more grit. It may be telling the octopus that the deeper systems are underfed. Not enough sleep, not enough movement, not enough real contact, not enough challenge that feels alive. In that state, the mind often does not search for meaning, it lunges for intensity. More scrolling, more noise, more impulse. Not because it is lazy, but because a starved attention system will take sugar when it cannot find nourishment. So this is where maturity matters. The goal is not to romanticize emptiness. The goal is to read it correctly. Some boredom is space. Some boredom is a warning. And a smart octopus learns the difference before it mistakes a low battery light for a personality trait. The octopus does not lose interest in real life by accident. Its threshold gets recalibrated. When the mind spends hour after hour inside bright, fast, frictionless stimulation, it starts treating that intensity as normal. Then anything slower feels broken. A page feels heavy. A workout feels hostile. A quiet meal feels unfinished, as if something is missing from the table besides the phone. That is the trick. Ordinary life did not become dull overnight. The nervous system just got promoted to a louder theater and now keeps booing the small scenes. But thresholds can move in both directions. When the octopus stops flooding every tentacle with novelty, the water settles. Subtle rewards begin to return. Depth, rhythm, progress. The strange pleasure of actually staying with something long enough for it to open. What used to feel boring does not suddenly become exciting in a flashy way. It becomes livable again. And that is the point. Boredom training is really threshold training. Willpower is overrated when the octopus lives inside a tank full of trapdoors. People talk as if focus fails because character fails, but a mind surrounded by instant exits will keep leaking through them. One tentacle reaches for the hard thing, 3 others find an easier current within arm's length. That is not moral weakness. That is bad architecture. So the smarter move is not to lecture the octopus all day. It is to redesign the water. Remove some bait, delay some access, make the meaningful path easier to touch than the cheap one. Environment is quiet power. It decides what feels frictionless, what feels annoying, and what the mind grabs before thought even shows up. A well-designed day does not demand heroism every hour. It reduces the number of times heroism is required. Start with 15 minutes, where the octopus takes in nothing. No scrolling, no podcast pretending to be productivity, no, just one quick check that somehow opens 6 tabs and steals the whole tide. Just a small block of unclaimed water. Walking, sitting, stretching, staring out a window, letting the nervous system stop being handled every second. This is not a spiritual performance. It is a reset chamber. The point is not to feel peaceful on command. The point is to notice how restless the tentacles have become when there is nothing to grab. At first, the mind will act offended, as if you have violated its civil rights by removing background stimulation. Good. That reaction is data. It shows where dependency has been hiding in ordinary routines. Stay there anyway. Not forever. Just 15 honest minutes. Done consistently, that little pocket of silence starts teaching the octopus a new fact. Not every empty space is an emergency, and not every itch deserves a signal. The octopus cannot quit cheap stimulation by eating pure emptiness all day. Remove the junk without replacing it, and the tentacles do not become noble, they become desperate. The mind still wants texture, movement, reward, a reason to reach for something. So the real move is substitution, not starvation. Give the octopus a better default snack, a page that teaches, a problem that sharpens, a skill that answers back, a project that slowly turns effort into visible progress. This is still stimulation, but it is cleaner stimulation. It does not leave the water cloudy afterward. That is why a good learning tool can matter. When the brain gets a small hit from understanding instead of endless novelty, the reward loop starts working for depth instead of against it. Curiosity stops being hijacked and starts being fed. The goal is not to turn the octopus into a monk with no desires. The goal is to give those desires a better current to swim in. Replace the glowing crumbs with something that can actually grow a mind. The octopus does not reclaim its mind through one heroic decision. It reclaims it by sealing the little leaks. Most attention is not destroyed in dramatic moments. It is shaved away in the cracks of the day while waiting, chewing, standing, waking up, drifting off. So stop treating every idle gap like an empty slot that must be filled on command. Let some water stay undisturbed. Eat without feeding the feed. Let the phone sleep outside the bed, so the first and last thing touching the nervous system is not a glowing demand. Give entertainment a seat on the calendar, instead of letting it crawl across every surface of the day like spilled ink. And keep only a narrow emergency gate open, because not every vibration deserves the authority of urgency. This is not about becoming rigid or joyless. It is about teaching the octopus that access is a design choice. The less random noise gets to enter through every tentacle, the more likely attention is to gather back into one living center. What changes is not that life becomes louder. It is that the octopus stops needing everything to be loud in order to feel alive. After enough practice, ordinary moments recover their texture. Work is no longer an enemy just because it is slow. A conversation no longer has to compete with a second screen to feel real. A walk, a meal, a page, a quiet room. These stop feeling like empty water and start feeling like places the mind can actually inhabit. That is the real reward, not some shiny productivity fantasy, but the return of clarity. The tentacles are no longer firing at every passing signal. They begin to move with intention. And when attention gathers back into one center, direction returns with it. The octopus can finally tell the difference between what is urgent, what is merely noisy, and what is worth a life. So start small. Protect a little silence. Let a little boredom stay. And if this helped you think more clearly, stay with the channel and keep swimming deeper.